Throughout this course, we'll be getting you involved in a lot of these interactive coding exercises. And the idea is that you're not just sitting here watching me talk, that you're actually putting everything you're learning into practice. That way, it actually becomes your own. These are great because we can give you instructions and show you what should happen if you write the correct code, what it needs to do, and you'll be able to write your code as well as see it run in the console. Once you're done with your code, you'll be able to submit it and see the tests run. And if you've written the code correctly, then all of the tests will pass. If your code isn't doing what it's supposed to, then when you click submit, you'll get feedback and you'll see what it's meant to do and what your code is actually doing. So you'll be able to use that to figure out what's wrong and fix your code. And it's through a lot of these exercises that you're going to level up and you're going to become a better coder. Now, in order for you to get set up on our coding rooms, we're going to have to get you signed up and registered with our course. So in order to do this, I want you to first head over to codingrooms.com and then sign up for a student account. Now, this is completely free, and all you have to do is just to click sign up, put in your email and password, and then you can choose student for this question, who are you? And then put in your first name and last name and click finish. Next, in order to get hold of the joining link, I want you to go to the course resources for the current lesson on Udemy. So the lesson is Interactive Coding Exercise Printing. And then I want you to click on the drop-down list and you should see step 1, sign up to Coding Rooms, which you should have already done. And then step 2 is join our Coding Room. So I want you to click on that link. And once you've clicked on that link, then it should automatically enroll you into our 100 Days of Code, the complete Python Pro bootcamp. And you should now be able to see every day's corresponding interactive coding exercises. So for example, on day 1, there are 4 exercises and they are named exactly the same as what you see in Udemy. So this is interactive coding exercise 1, which is printing, debugging practice, input function, and variables. And you see all the same ones over here that you'll be able to attempt. Now, the next time when you log in, all you have to do is just go into your courses and you should see the interactive coding exercises for the 100 Days of Code, and you will be able to continue where you left off. Now, let's get started with the first exercise. That's the objective of this lesson. So we're going to go into day 1 and it might be collapsed. If so, just go ahead and expand it and then click on exercise 1, printing. And here you see the instructions for what you need to do in order to complete this coding exercise. Now I want you to go ahead and click on Open Assignment Workspace. And here you'll be able to see the instructions on one side of the pane. You'll be able to have your main.py, which is where you write your code. So all the lines below here, you can just type your code out. And then once you're done writing your code, I want you to test it by running your code. So hitting this run button, and you'll see the result of your code being run in the console down here. Now, once you think you've completed the coding exercise according to all the instructions over here, I want you to go ahead and test your code. And you can test your code by simply hitting submit. Now, don't worry about all of this where it says the submission will count towards your grade for the assignment. There are no grades, there's no time limits. Nobody is going to check what you've done. It's all for the benefit of your learning. So you can submit your code as many times as you like. So once you hit submit, it's going to run the automated test that we've set up behind the scenes, and it's going to check to make sure that your code is doing what it's supposed to. So for example, in this case, my tests have not passed because there's a cross here. And note that sometimes there'll be more than one test, so you can scroll down and see the other ones. And the reason why it didn't pass, as they've shown here, is this is my actual output. This is what my code did. And this is what the expected output is supposed to be. And there's a whole bunch of differences. This does not look like this. So then we have to go and fix it. And I've left some feedback in some of the lessons to help you in case you get stuck. But also there are hints in some of the instructions. So just make sure that you read everything. Now, if you want to, or if you get really, really stuck, you can take a look at the solution. Now, I don't recommend looking at the solution code unless you're actually just checking to make sure that something hasn't gone majorly wrong, or you're not completely stuck, or just for whatever reason. I really, really want you to persevere and try your best to actually write the code yourself and to solve the issues and to figure out how to make all the tests pass. But if you need to look at the solution, they are available on Replit, so just click on this link and it'll take you to the solution page. In order to see the files, you can either fork the REPL as you have done before, you'll get a copy of this solution file, or what I think is much simpler is simply click on Show Files and then click on this main.py file. And then you will see the solution code on this page without having to fork a copy of this REPL. But you can do it any number of ways, whichever way suits you best is fine. Now, once you have written your code correctly, you should be able to see all the tests pass. And by passing, it means that there's a little tick along each of these. And you can see in this one, there's only one test and this is passed. So you get a score of 100%. And the actual output that your code has created in the console now looks exactly the same as expected. So you are now done and you can go back to your other assignments and you can continue. So this is a really simple interface, and we've switched to this from Replit because Replit actually disabled their classroom technology, which looks basically exactly the same as this, and we wanted to provide you the best learning experience possible. So we've switched over to coding rooms, and you should be able to sign up and get started without any issue. Now remember, at the end of the lesson, I will go through the solution with you step by step, explaining the solution as well. So if you get stuck, don't worry, I'm here for you every step of the way. But now it's time for you to pause the video and make sure that you've signed up for coding rooms already, registered for a student account, and then click on the link in step 2 in the course resources and sign up for our course. And then go over to the first exercise, printing, and give it a go. All right, pause the video now. All right, how did you get on? I really hope you gave this a good go, because it's in these moments where you're going to be learning the code. Unfortunately, no amount of listening to me talk is actually going to give you these skills. It's only when you actually try it out and get the computer to do the thing that you want it to do, that's when you become the master of the computer, also known as a programmer. So in this case, the instructions are pretty simple. We have to use what we learned about the print statement to output these 3 lines. And notice how in this GIF, the lines are printing out in separate lines. This one gets printed, then this one, then this one. But because it happens so fast, it seems like as if they're getting printed as a single block. So we're told to write our code below this line. And we know that in order to print something, we use the print function with a set of parentheses. And inside the parentheses is where we tell it what we want it to print. So in the first instance, it's day 1, space, then it's... Now, it's really easy to make spelling mistakes, but I really encourage you to actually type out anything that you put into your code rather than just simply copying and pasting it. Now, of course, it works exactly the same way. I could just copy and paste the code in here, but it's often in these cases where you make mistakes, like, for example, forgetting to add the double quotes around the text that you want to print. I really recommend just typing out the code for practice whenever you're doing these code challenges. Now, the last line that we want to print is a little bit complicated. It's almost like print inception, because what we want to print is this function. This is how we write our function. And that has to go inside here, inside a set of double quotes. So let's open up our double quotes and then write our print statement. And in this case, I'm actually using a single quote, and I'll tell you just in a little moment why that is. So let's add that single quote and finally the closing parentheses. This now is the entire code that you would need to be able to print something out. And when I go ahead and click run, you can see that the output looks exactly the same as what we've got here in the GIF. This is what we want. And when I click submit, you'll see that my tests all pass, and I can now submit my assignment, and I've now completed the coding challenge. Now, coming back to this single quote, why is it that I've got a single quote here rather than a double quote, which is what we've been using all this time? Well, because in Python, it doesn't actually care whether if you enclose these strings, so these pieces of text that are not to be interpreted as code, inside single quotes or inside double quotes. It is identical to the computer. This honey badger literally doesn't care. But if you had a set of double quotes and then you wanted another set of double quotes inside the double quotes, so for example, if I replace this with double quotes, you'll see that already the syntax highlighting is already screaming out to us. There's something that's not quite right here, because the colors are not the same as here, where the print function is in a particular color, the parentheses are in a particular color, and the text that is to be printed is in a yet another different color. In this case, it looks all jumbled up, and we're getting some errors here. So now if I hit run, you'll get syntax errors. And the problem here is, of course, our code thinks that the end of this string is here. And so it doesn't know what on earth is going on afterwards. And instead, it's seeing this as a string, this as a string, and this is being interpreted as code. So when we want to use some double quotes inside another set of double quotes, commonly you'll see people switch to single quotes instead. So you could, for example, write the print statement like so and use double quotes if you want to print those out. Or you can do it the other way, which is what I had before, where we use our double quotes on the outside and single quotes on the inside. So have a play around with that if that's at all confusing, but once you've tried it a few times and switched it around a few times, it should become clear what it's actually doing. How did you get on with this challenge? If you ever need to see the solution, it's always down here as a link. So I hope you enjoy this challenge. In the next lesson, we're going to get back to learning about Python, and we're going to learn about strings and string manipulation. For all of that and more, I'll see you there.